In this video, we are going to talk about the 10 strange laws around the world you must know. So before starting this video, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. The world is home to a wide variety of cultures and customs, and each nation has its own peculiar practices that are distinct from those of its neighbors. However, the only way to guarantee that society functions in an orderly manner is to have rules and laws. However, each nation is free to fashion its legal system in accordance with its own preferences, and it is always fascinating to see how other nations come up with their own distinct legal systems. If you plan to travel or reside in a foreign country, it is critical that you have a solid understanding of how things operate in that location. The customs and traditions of a foreign land might be exciting and fascinating, but sometimes they can also take a rather peculiar turn. Here are the 10 strange laws around the world you must know. Number 10. It's illegal to share your Netflix password in Tennessee, USA. There is an odd rule in Tennessee, USA, which forbids sharing your Netflix password with anyone. The most bizarre aspect of this is that Netflix itself permits up to 4 people to utilize the service concurrently on various devices. In fact, all entertainment material businesses, including cable TV, are covered by this regulation, not just Netflix. A year in prison and a fine of $2,500 are the penalties for exchanging passwords. The recording industry's lobbyists helped pass the law in an effort to stem the flow of illegal music sharing and, it appears, unlawful movie streaming. Tennessee law makes it illegal to share or sell passwords to subscription services, and violators risk steep penalties, a misdemeanor, and perhaps jail time. If the offense is serious enough, if you are a password dealer, you can face criminal charges. Number 9. Forgetting your wife's birthday could land you in jail. The majority of spouses in the globe are forgetful, but Samoa in Oceania is working to change that. There, it is against the law to forget your wife's birthday, and if you do, you must answer to the law and still compensate your wife. If the wife decides to report this terrible error to the police, the husband may need to visit the jail and face some difficult questioning. The best course of action for husbands in Samoa, then, is to keep their wives satisfied so that, even if they do manage to forget their birthdays, at least they won't face complaints from their wives to the police. The best course of action, however, is for them to remember to wish her a happy birthday and to get her some lovely presents and a delicious supper. Number 8. It is illegal in Oshawa, Canada to climb trees. According to the pedagogue, parks, squares, and other public areas are the best settings for kids to play uninhibitedly who reside in cities. The bad news for residents of the city of Oshawa is that it is against the law for people to climb trees in public parks. No person shall climb a tree, attach anything to it, or place anything on it in any way, according to one of the city's bylaws. This prohibition also applies to any part of a tree that is located on municipal property. According to the Canadian law discussion, the purpose of the law was to stop people from trying to act like Spider-Man. The city of Oshawa claims that it is extremely concerned about the safety of its residents, which is why this rule is in place. Number 7. It's not permitted to chew gum in Singapore. Since 1992, chewing gum has not been sold, owned, or used in Singapore. Yes, chewing gum is unlawful and is subject to a whopping $100,000 fine in addition to a possible 2-year prison sentence. Risks to people's health and environmental harm served as the justification. This regulation exemplifies Singapore's concern for the generation of trash, such as gum, which takes a long time to disintegrate and ends up building up. In 2000, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew was informed during an interview with the BBC that chewing gum fosters innovation. He said that it was illegal to chew gum and that anyone who needed to chew something in order to be more creative should just chew a banana. In 2004, the government loosened the legislation and permitted the sale of chewing gum for medical purposes, but only with a prescription from a physician. Number 6. Flying a UFO over Châteauneuf-du-Pape, France. Those from other planets who intend to visit Earth in the near future might wish to avoid France. Specifically in southeast France's Châteauneuf-du-Pape. As a result of a local witnessing deep-sea divers emerging from a cigar-shaped spaceship in 1954, anti-UFO legislation was first introduced. The prior mayor promptly issued a proclamation stating that any flying cigar or saucer aircraft that should land on the community's territory shall be instantly taken in jail. Number 5. Slurring a female in Oklahoma. This rule makes it unlawful to orally or otherwise, falsely and maliciously or falsely and wantonly infer to any female, married or unmarried, a want of chastity back in 1910, long before we could even begin to think of something like internet trolls. If this were implemented nationwide today, internet trolls might finally think twice before harassing women online. Back then, you could get 90 days in jail and be forced to pay the state $500. Number 4. Spitting in public places. Spitting is not tolerated in Singapore. In marketplaces and coffee cafes, you cannot spit. On public sidewalks and roadways, you cannot spit. The fine for breaking this law is $1,000. Alcohol consumption and parties are prohibited from 10:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. There are fines up to $2,000 for this. For any such party, you should obtain your government's permit. Only as of the beginning of 2015 is the law in effect. The same applies to kite flying in public. For this offense, $5,000 is the fine. The island city must abide by this law. Number 3. If you live in Arizona, you could be subject to legal action if you allow your donkey to spend the night in a bathtub. In spite of the fact that this law appears to be exceedingly specific and absurd, there is in fact a rational reason for why it was enacted. Back in 1924, a local businessman and his donkey were responsible for the passing of a law that was eventually put into effect. It was common practice for the merchant to let his donkey rest in an old bathtub. The town was flooded after a nearby dam failed, and the donkey and his tugboat were taken away with the floodwaters. The donkey made it through his journeys alive, but he ended up trapped in a basin, and the people who lived there had to put in a significant amount of time and effort to free him. The obvious and only logical conclusion that can be drawn from this is that donkeys should not be allowed in bathtubs anywhere in the state. Number 2. Exit in the middle of the air. The federal aviation legislation in Canada makes it illegal for a person to enter or leave the aircraft while it is in flight unless the person leaves for the purpose of performing a parachute fall. This law applies across the entire country. If, on the other hand, the passenger is in possession of a parachute, then jumping out of the plane while it is in the air is something that can only be done with the approval of the pilot. If you're not Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie, getting on board an airplane while it's in the air probably isn't too much of a problem. If you are Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie, however, it could be a challenge. Number 1. One major violation of the law is engaging in the practice of palmistry. You should give it some more thought before going to get your palm read the next time you have the need to do so. It would appear that telling fortunes or engaging in any other form of so-called crafty science is against the law. Any person who pretends or professes to tell fortunes using palmistry or any other form of witchcraft may be found guilty of an offense under Section 13 of the Vagrancy Act of 1966. This provision makes it possible for a person to be found guilty of a crime. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.